always like hitting this right turn on green. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Appreciate you stopping by. Oh, what do you know? That radar was inaccurate. Never is accurate. Those radar detectors on that post, they're accurate when I'm in my car, but they're not accurate on the motorcycle. They're usually a couple miles an hour off. But anyways, today I wanted to talk about some good practices that you can do on your motorcycle to train yourself for emergency maneuvers that you have to make, or you know, any sort of we'll call it any sort of dangerous situation where you might have to, we'll call them like evasive maneuvers. Excuse me. So I initially started doing this on after I had watched a video of Yami Noobs, where he'd mentioned that you should practice coming to a stop. He very briefly mentioned that you should practice coming to a stop after locking up your rear brake, which we've all done on a bicycle as kids and everything. But I started doing it on the motorcycle, and it made me realize that I should be doing other things to kind of prepare myself or desensitize myself to those situations where I might actually have to use an emergency maneuver like that to save myself from getting into an accident. So some things I do are, first off, like I just previously mentioned, locking up the rear brake at slower speeds, not like what I'm at right now, and practicing coming to a stop off of that. Like being able to control the rear wheel skidding, and after being locked up, obviously if it locks up, it skids. Additionally, I've tried to practice just emergency braking, where I am braking and coming to a stop as fast as I can safely. So what I do for that is I pick out a point in the road, like some sort of reference point, like say this telephone pole right here, or this no parking sign. I pick out that point from a distance, and then I wait a bit. I go a normal speed that I would normally go at, and then once it gets really close, like say this telephone pole right here, once it gets really close, I act like I can't see it, and then all of a sudden, when I get to a distance that I think is a hard distance, a challenging distance to stop within, then I apply emergency braking and see if I can stop quickly enough to, you know, obviously to stop before that barrier, which in that case would be the telephone pole or whatever object you have picked out. See if you can stop before it. Now obviously make sure there's no cars behind you when you're doing this. I do it at night oftentimes when there's less cars out. But I think that's a good practice. Emergency braking is something you really need to know how to do, because that's what's going to save your ass in a situation where you have to brake. You know, being able to properly do it. Like I've mentioned before, you know, panic braking is what causes a lot of single vehicle accidents with motorcycles. So that's what I do. Additionally, I'll occasionally practice like a swerve, pick an object in the road, or pick even just like an image in the road, like an arrow or something, whatever you can, and swerve out of the way of it. You know, maybe like this black thing I see on the road right there. I'll act like that was a danger, or like say, you know, like something in the road you can picture your eyes on, and you can get around it safely. Obviously, don't, you know, you want to push yourself to your limits here, but you don't want to do it in, you know, in a way that's super dangerous. You may have to go to an extreme when you're in an emergency situation, but you don't want to get into an accident by just practicing. So be careful with it. But those are a few things that I do. What else have I done? Swerve and brakes. So like obviously if you've learned in any sort of motorcycle training, do your initial swerve and then a swerve back to your position. So swerve and then a return swerve to get back into your a secondary swerve, whatever you want to call it, to get back into your position. To do those, and then a swerve and an emergency brake. So swerve out of the way of something and then and then apply an emergency brake. Obviously don't brake and swerve at the same time. That is a big no-no on the motorcycles, so be sure not to do that. But practice a brake then swerve, swerve then brake, you know, both of those. You never know when you may have to do one, so like say a brake and then a swerve. That's a slow speed one obviously, but you know what I mean. Practice these things. These things are good to practice. Not only will it get you more used to doing that maneuver, it's going to build the, you know, that level of comfortability that you have with your riding, so that in the case of something happening on the road, a real emergency, and you have to use an emergency maneuver, you're going to be comfortable doing it, and you're going to be able to do it smoothly and not in a panicking state where you'll do it, you know, very rapid and short bursts, you know, like panic braking and stuff like that. You're not going to be in a panic state. You'll be able to do it smoothly and calmly because you've done it hundreds of times. You practiced it. This is similar. This goes back to some things I've seen about you know, why people think like someone like Marc Marquez is such a good rider in MotoGP. He always is pushing himself to the limits, right? He's always in training, you know, pushing his lean angle as far as he can, you know, to see how far he can go without, you know, before he, you know, tips the bike over. So you have to push yourself to those limits so you can see what you can do, and that way when a situation arises where you need to use those skills, you have them at your disposal, and you have them at your disposal in a manner where you know you can perform them successfully, right? So keep those things in mind, you know, practice them safely, and hopefully this helps.